SIFTD Countdown.
The Top 10 Video Game Turkeys of 2019. Thanksgiving is often a time of reflection where we take stock of our lives while spending a moment to appreciate our blessings. Sometimes you find that things are great and you're on the right path. Other times you realize things are flying off the rails. The following list is the latter. Games, companies, events, and services that fell flat on their faces in 2019. Number 10. Epic Games Store Exclusives. Epic Games Store arrived on the scene in a big way in 2019, offering developers and publishers a bigger cut of the money when compared to Steam. It quickly found its footing with a number of key partnerships, but sadly, some of these arrangements angered fans because they could no longer buy every single game on day one at Steam. Since then, EGS has softened the blow by offering free games every week and drastically improving its service. But there was a solid month where PC players were completely up in arms. Number 9. Pokemon Sword and Shield Dexit. Fans have been angry over Pokemon Sword and Shield ever since the game's developer, Game Freak, announced it would not include every single Pokemon, seemingly going against the franchise's catchphrase of "gotta catch 'em all." It's never been easy to transfer Pokemon from old versions to new, but now it's impossible. Game Freak says it doesn't have the resources to include over 1,000 different critters, but that hasn't stopped fans from signing petitions and threatening boycotts. Number 8. Nintendo Switch Joy-Con issues. Nintendo's Joy-Con controllers for its Switch console have been a problem since launch. At first, there were bad transmitters that kept the wireless controls from connecting with the console. Nintendo fixed Joy-Cons for free, updated its manufacturing, and things seemed okay. Then we discovered that the left Joy-Con has an issue with a drifting analog stick, meaning your character will move in-game even if you're not touching the control stick. Nintendo also fixed this issue for free, but the same stick then appeared in the Switch Lite. It simply isn't good enough for a controller that cost $80. Number 7. Shenmue 3. Shenmue 3 is a bittersweet tale. On one hand, we're just glad it was ever made, but on the other, it ended up being terrible. We don't know whether to celebrate or weep. We're even more confused over the game's direction. Was it intentionally made to feel like a dated piece of software, or was the team just not up to the task? It doesn't really matter because after Shenmue 3, we doubt we'll get Shenmue 4. And after 18 years of waiting, the payoff was a massive disappointment. Number 6. Bioware. Once an infallible studio incapable of doing wrong, 2019 has been the worst year in the history of Bioware. It all started with Mass Effect Andromeda in 2017, a passable game that crumbled under the weight of immense expectations. Fans forgave the studio and lined up for its next game called Anthem, but were disappointed once again. Then Kotaku published an expose detailing the game's dysfunctional development, and all hell broke loose. This year, we discovered that the Bioware process is no longer working, and it's a crushing blow. Number 5. Bethesda. If Bioware took 2019 on the chin, Bethesda was almost knocked out. Part of it is the hangover from Fallout 76. The game was awful at release, and Bethesda spent the entire year trying to get it on its feet, but just about every decision was the wrong one, culminating in the announcement of a $12 per month subscription plan that offers little value to players. Its other games in 2019, like Rage 2 and Wolfenstein Youngblood, failed to find large audiences, and with big games like Starfield and The Elder Scrolls 6 still years away, the publisher has found its image a bit tarnished. Number 4. Blizzard and China. A lot of video game companies deal with China, and if they don't, they wish they were. It's a massive untapped market full of potential, but there's just one catch. It's a communist country regularly accused of human rights abuse. It also recently took control of Hong Kong, and the citizens are rebelling. When a Hearthstone esports athlete pledged his support, Blizzard banned him and took away his prize money. The internet erupted, but Blizzard just kept making it worse with half-hearted reactions and a limp apology at BlizzCon 2019. Honesty is always the best policy, but Blizzard's reluctance to part ways with a valuable market exposed its capitalist leanings, shattering its public perception. Number 3. Google Stadia. Video game streaming is nothing new. OnLive launched back in 2011, and Sony bought its patents and another company called Gaikai to launch PlayStation Now in 2014. It hasn't been a smashing success in the past, but Google dumped a ton of money into it anyway for its Stadia service, promising 4K streams at 60 frames per second. When the product launched, most of its games were upscaled to 4K. Its Chromecast sticks overheated, and many of its most interesting features were missing. If you spent $130 on the Founders Edition of Stadia, we're guessing you think it should be number 1 on this list. Number 2. E3 2019 and the ESA. E3 2019 was a shadow of its former self. With Microsoft, Sony, EA, and Activision missing from the floor, it often looked empty on days where the show is usually rocking and rolling. The ESA, which organizes the event, failed to convince these juggernauts that a spot on the floor was worth the investment, so they didn't show up. Our flagship convention looked like a joke, and to make matters worse, the organization didn't protect the personal information for many of its attendees. Through the course of that, it was also discovered that the ESA let a minuscule amount of the press into the event for free, exposing its greed. Number 1. PlayStation. Our number 1 pick on this list may come as a surprise, but PlayStation has had it on autopilot for the better part of 18 months. It started at the end of last year when it didn't have a single high-profile exclusive for the holidays, and continued into 2019 where it only released 2 noteworthy exclusives despite having several lying in wait. Its malaise wasn't just confined to software output. It also bailed on E3 2019 and has generally been running on silent mode when the PlayStation 4 should be in its stride. While we understand its stockpiling hype and products for PlayStation 5, it's rare for Sony to essentially abandon a platform so early. It's put a blemish on the generation it dominated by fading near the finish line. Overall, 2019 was another great year in games, but we would be remiss not to mention its shortcomings. Only when we realize our mistakes can we correct them, so we hope that this list serves as part of that. We hope you have a great holiday season, and we're thankful for people like you who support our content. If you're feeling in the giving mood, please check out our Patreon at patreon.com/SIFTD.